everyone. Today we're going to be completing Thursday's Give Me 5 for page number 8, and let's go ahead and get started on the first column. On the first column, they want us to multiply 5,631 times 4. So you should have it set it up like this, and we're going to start in the lowest place value and make our way on over. So 4 times 1 equals 4. 4 times 3 equals 12. Drop the 2, carry the 1. 4 times 6 equals 24 plus 1, 25. Drop the 5, carry the 2. And 4 times 5 equals 20 plus 2, 22. Boys and girls, your final answer is 22,524. The next column, they're wanting us to find the equivalent decimal or the equivalent fractions for the numbers they give us. They gave us 2/10 as a fraction, 0 and 65/100 as a decimal, and 0 and 4/10 as a decimal. So let's start off with the first one. Let's read this fraction, because how we read our fraction, how this sounds should match how this sounds, how the decimal will sound when we read it. Okay? So let's read this fraction. 2/10. 2/10. Okay? So we know this is not a whole, because if this was a whole, it would be 10/10. 10 out of 10. That's not the case. So we can put a 0 in the ones place, because we already know there is no whole numbers. Now, 2/10. Is there a place value that has the name tenths? Yes. And it's right behind the decimal. So boys and girls, this is the equivalent decimal. 0 and 2/10. 2/10, 2/10. All right, the next one, let's read this decimal. 0 and 65, what place value is that 5 in? 0 and 65/100. Okay, hundredths. Okay, so 65/100. 65/100, 65/100. They sound the same. The last decimal, let's read it. 0 and 4. What place value is this? The tenths place. So 0 and 4/10. 4/10. How can we write 4/10 as a fraction? Four-tenths. Okay, so make sure you record these for each of those. And let's move on to the next column. They're wanting us to subtract 9 and 8/10 minus 7 and 6/10. So let's set that up. The bigger number always goes on top, and we're always going to line up our decimals. So 9 and 8/10 minus 7 and 6/10. So you should have it set up like this. Bigger number on top, my decimals are lined up, and I'm ready to start. 8 minus 6 equals 2. Drop your decimal straight down. And 9 minus 7 equals 2. Your final answer is 2 and 2/10. 2 and 2/10. Wonderful. All right, our next column is the solve and label column, and this is where we see our strip diagram. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and label your strip diagram with the information they give you and the missing information. So we're right here. Okay, so they gave us our whole, they gave us one of our parts, and we're missing the other part, because I know if I add these two together, that equals my whole. So what operation do I need to do in order to find this missing part? That's right. When you have your whole and you're missing a part, you're going to subtract. So let's subtract. 2010, make sure the bigger number always goes on top. 2010 minus 369. And make sure you are lining up your numbers by place value, like this. Ones place, tens place, hundreds place, 1000s place. Okay? And let's start subtracting. 0 minus 9. I know I can't do that, so I'm going to go to my neighbor and borrow. Okay? The 1 is going to give us 1, so it's going to make that a 10, and that 1 becomes a 0, just like that. 10 minus 9 equals 1. Next, 0 minus 6. I know I can't do that, so I got to go to my next door neighbor. They don't have anything for me to borrow either, so I have to go to my next door neighbor, and they're going to give us some. So he's going to give us 1. That makes this a 10. But this one is still needing to borrow, so this 10 is going to give 1 to this 0. And this is what it should look like. 10 minus 6 equals 4. 9 minus 3 equals 6. And 1 minus nothing equals 1. Boys and girls, your final answer and your missing part is 1,641. And last but certainly not least, we have our multiplication facts. 8 times 3 equals 24. 6 times 4 equals 24. 12 times 2 equals 24. Alright, boys and girls, that's it for Thursday's Give Me 5. Make sure you input your answers. If it has a comma, make sure to input that. If it has a decimal, and if it's a fraction, you can use the slash on your keyboard. And that is it. Tune into my next video.